It doesn't seem to be a tiny incident. It seems to be a massive, hey, Marielle, it seems to be a massive framework of just constant mental imagery and stuff going on. So, but when you can see that the world, it's representing one thing, it's all the same. It doesn't matter where you go in the world, what you do. You could be on a beautiful island drinking margaritas, or you could be in a factory in London making matchsticks, if they still do that. I don't know if they. It's exactly the same thing. But the mind that believes in separation, that values it and gives it a value, it splits it all up like that. This is better than this. This is better than that. So it seems to be lots of ideas contained within a potential of things that can be experienced. And we're after one experience only. Out of the entirety of everything that seems to be offered in consciousness, we're after one experience that has nothing to do with any of that. We put all of what's contained in consciousness into the same box and say, none of this is my will. None of this is what I want. I have no use for any of it. But that's got to be true for you. That's got to be true for me. There's got to be a place where that's not just something I'm reading in a book. That's just not something that I'm taking on board because Jesus tells me. It's got to be my own light bulb moment. It's got to be my own arrival point. It's like, holy shit, doesn't matter what I do here. It's death. The death we want death in this. This is what we want, but we want the death of the ego. We want the death of false belief, or the release of false belief. We'll call it death for a second because that has more, pertinent sort of overtones, I guess, but a finality to it. We want it done, right? The ego also wants death, but wants the death of the body, right? That's where I make the decision. I can't escape death. I made it up so that it couldn't be escaped. It's impossible. I need a miracle for that to occur. There's no point me trying to arbitrate it in my mind, right? There's nothing in my mind that is going to show me what salvation is other than the miracle, a revelation. Right? For that, I need to be willing, at least a little bit willing, to take on board at the start that perhaps there's more to my mind, like not just consciousness, my mind as a whole, than I'm aware of, which will necessitate a leap of faith at some point. And Barrie, getting back to where you're at with that, you're sitting on a fence here, and like, I'm just going to put it to you, maybe I'm wrong, right? But I've seen this many times. You're sitting on a fence here between the death of the ego and the death of the body, right? One being the total release of the old purpose that you have and the embracing of the new one. And the other one being this place where you're just fed up. Right? I understand being fed up, but you have to go beyond that. There's a shift in consciousness just beyond that. I'm telling you, be totally fed up with me, with the course, with salvation, with Jesus. Fuck you, Jesus. You gotta really like just find yourself in that place where you want to tear your chest open and rip your heart out and just go, can't do it anymore. Stop trying to hold it back. Right? A total just, ugh. Some people say that's getting to rock bottom. I don't think it's really rock bottom. Rock bottom is more depressing. I think it's reaching total passion. Total passion, the imagery of that total passion and what we go through in our physical life, in our physical human experience, it looks like being devastating, and it looks like just having a mental breakdown. It looks like all of these things. But truly, when you can really see what's actually going on there, it's beautiful. It's like a rebirth occurring. And we can either, not that I've ever had a baby in this thing, but like, women when they have contractions and they have to push with it, we can either push with it and just get that baby out, or we can just like stay in labor for however long. Is that a good analogy, ladies? I don't know. Anyway, but it's like push.
It was.
When you read this course, right? This is the incredible thing about this course. When you read this course, right, all of the references of holiness and divinity and everything, we don't even know what they are, right? We have no clue what they are. We don't remember. We've got this whole amnesia, and yet they trigger us. They call us to remember something, and we get emotional about it. We start to read that I'm God's son and I'm holy and I'm all these things, and we start to get emotionally charged. It's like, why? We don't even know what he's talking about, really. It's like a Chinaman reading you the menu at his restaurant in Chinese. You wouldn't even know what he's saying, but you get emotionally charged about it. You know, it's like, oh, that sounds good. He's reading something there. I don't know what the hell it is, but that sounds good. You know, that's how dumb the ego is. It doesn't even know what's being presented here, right? And it can't know. All it knows is that there is something else going on of which it's not privy to, right? And so it sets up this whole roller coaster of emotional responses that they indicate the presence of an awareness, but with no clue of what that's all about. Does that make sense? It's like somewhere you have a response. You're reading one of these lessons, you're triggered by it, or you're emotionally charged by it or something. And there's this kind of, like you said to me, I'm fearful of it. You don't even know what you're fearful of, right? It can only be love. If God is everything and God is love, it can only be love that you are fearful of, which is what Jesus is saying throughout the whole course. You're afraid to love yourself unconditionally and to look upon the world with love, right? Now, you would have to ask yourself, why am I reacting to these freaking lessons? Why am I having these emotional things? It's because somewhere in you, something has opened up. Somewhere in you, a process has begun, which is irreversible, and you're starting to actually feel again. You're starting to become whole again. You're starting to allow your inner sanctum to be expanded and pushed and, you know, pushed and pulled and manipulated and all that sort of stuff. And that's through the activity of the Holy Spirit. It's just a stage. It'll pass. Eventually, you'll just laugh. Eventually, you'll just find this peaceful place where you just laugh and giggle and just, it's all kind of funny. But for some of us, the emotional involvement that goes along with it is part and parcel with what I would say would be many incarnations of denial. Right? Some of us are here on our first or second incarnation, and we're probably not really had too much trauma, and some of us have been here for 1,000 lifetimes, fighting battles and condemning and judging. And so, you know, we're more sensitive when somebody tells us that we're forgiven. Some of us are just bigger arseholes than the rest of us, you know, but like, it's like, that's fine. I never know where anyone's at with anything, but in the moment where you're emotionally charged with something, I know exactly where you're at. You're on the precipice. You're on the cusp of a release, which is a shift, right? In that moment, don't try to analyze it. Simply go with what's occurring. Simply allow that emotional energy, that upwelling of fear and whatever it is to happen. Just let it happen. Be still and let all that come up and breathe through it and go through it like exactly what you're feeling now. Don't try to stop it. Don't try to hold it back. Sink beneath the waves. See how big it is. Recognize, holy shit, I can't deal with this, and ask for help. I need help, Father. I need help. I'm in the middle of a release here. I've got a whole bunch of shit going on. You don't have to have somebody in your face going, rah. It can just be as simple as somebody, just random stranger act of kindness, you know, like I've seen people have the biggest freaking meltdowns in life just because somebody smiles at them or gives them a kind word. You know, you never know what it's going to take to activate somebody, and all of a sudden, like the balloon's got to burst. You put enough air into it, it's like you can't keep blowing. Right? You're there, Barry. I'm telling you, you're there. Have you been to London yet?
I went today, Dave.
Did you? Brilliant. You're frozen. Oh, he's gone. Tell me the story, Barry. I want to hear about the London project.
Am I still here? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're still here.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Let's hear it.
Can I share my screen? Yeah.
We can see you and hear you.
Okay. So yeah,
hang on. Wait. Before you tell the story, Barry's assignment, right? This is a divine assignment. And I'm just going to put this first as the preamble. So in the Bible, in the New Testament, Jesus talks about all his disciples he has, right? Towards the end, like generally he's got the 12, right, that follow him everywhere. And then towards the end of his tenure, at the end of his ministry, he seems to have like 80 or 90 guys, and he just sends out a group of 80 and none of them come back. And then he sends 20 out or whatever it is. Tina will do the details, but he's still got his 12, right? I gave Barry an assignment, right? Everything's perfectly orchestrated, right? So you got to appreciate this. I gave Barry an assignment to go to London with his boys, find a nice pub or whatever, and have a beer. One of his boys is only young, so he can't have whatever. And then go to the Great Frog and buy himself something nice, right? Now, there was a purpose in my mind. There's a purpose behind doing that, right? In Barrie, the purpose doesn't get revealed until it's done. The whole reason Jesus sends his disciples out is so that they can see the power of the Holy Spirit activated in them outside of the comfort zone of walking with Jesus. Right? Some of them went off to Greece and other places and set up churches and did all sorts of stuff and cast out demons, you know. But if they're hanging around with Jesus all the time, Jesus does all the hard work and heavy lifting, and they just sort of walk along going, yep, that's Jesus. They never get to see their own power manifest. Barry, let's have it.
Okay.
You can share the screen.
Okay.
Did you need
share
to?
the screen.
Okay.
Well, there's a few images.
Okay.
See if this works. Have you got that one?
It's a blank screen right now. Oh, got it.
Right.
Yay.
Slug and Lettuce. That's the pub you went to?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's in London. And
Right, okay.
actually this has gone a little bit fast, but let's go forward.
Yep.
Yeah, this was there we go, my journey into
Awesome.
London. This is
Where are the boys?
London. That's Liberty. That's Liberties. I didn't take the boys, Dave. So
all right. Okay.
I went myself. Yeah. So that's Liberties. Yeah, the boys wouldn't come today. Next time. There we are, Carnaby Street. This is today, right? I got up at 5 o'clock this morning to do this. Yeah. Soho. Oh, there we are. I took these as a bit of evidence. And the guy I got to know in the shop, he took a photo of me, right? And amazingly, right, he looks like Frank Zappa. I mean,
he does.
Those of you who know Frank Zappa. This guy, I said, everyone must tell you look like Frank Zappa. And then afterwards, I said, what's your name, mate? And he said, Joe. And Frank Zappa wrote one of his most famous albums was Joe's Garage. We were jamming in Joe's
Right.
garage. I said, "You are literally." He's clearly a reincarnation, basically. But anyway, he was a lovely guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a kind of a digression with the images, I guess, Dave. But so I suppose what comes of the story is yeah, what happened for me really in all of this is I
Yep.
got a couple of key things. I talked to a lot of random people. But I kind of do that anyway. But I think one of the ones was going and just doing something for myself, and I think that was part of the lesson here was Dave said don't hold back, and so on my finger here, and I'm not a big kind of, and I explained myself in there. I said, look, I haven't got tattoos, I haven't got piercings, but I've got a fair few scars. I don't know what I'm going to buy here. I'll try to get this thing to open so I can see myself. But anyway, but I bought a ring, a big chunky silver ring. I don't know can we see this on here? It's a
Can
great
you stop
big
share?
Yeah, can see it.
chunky
Beautiful.
silver ring. I'll stop the share. There we go.
Yeah.
I bought that, and I knew
Yeah.
there would be something. I said to the guy, "I'm here on a mission. There's going to be something here for me. I don't know what it is. I'm not a big jewelry person. I don't know. I didn't want a skull or a snake And then there was this in the case, and I said, "Have you got one of those that'll fit a big fat finger? Because I've got quite chunky hands, right?" And he said, "I'll go. I'll have a look." And they put one out, and it just literally fits my finger. So that was that. And I think what came then out of that afterwards was me just observing stuff in a different way. Because normally I would have walked past that shop. I wouldn't even have got in the shop. And so after that, having been in the shop and had to look in that way, I was kind of looking at everything in that way. All the way back to Totnes on the train. It's been a long day, 3.5 hour train journey each day, blah, blah. I came back into Totnes and I was talking to some people in the market. Then I went into an art shop I've never been into in my own hometown. I was talking to the woman about the art in there and looking at it in a way that I don't normally see things. So kind of what I learned today was, yeah, I stopped looking, I stopped seeing what's in front of me. Yeah, and it kind of opened up a little world and a whole conversation and people connecting with, yeah, in a way that's hard to kind of like describe, but was I got that was what the day was about. That if someone had said to me, "Why did you do that today?" I would have said, a bit like Dave when he introduced this, I would have said, "I don't know. Why are you going to?" I don't know why I went to London today. But then that came out of it. It was a connection, a perception, a different way of looking. I was seeing things differently. That's what came out of it.
Good. That was the whole object of the exercise. You have to be willing to say yes to taking a step into I don't know. Then something else can occur that has nothing to do with what you would ordinarily think or think about. And that's exactly what that assignment was for.
Okay.
It's an act of giving to yourself. The ring is just a symbol. I knew you weren't going to buy a skull or anything. I've got skulls and things like that. The ring is just a symbol, but it represents that willingness to say yes to something beyond yourself. And that's what we do in our
Yeah.
life. That's what we do in our meditations. We're saying yes to something that's beyond ourselves that we can't know about until we say yes to it and actually step into our yes. It's like I gave an assignment once to, like, sometimes in my mind I get these visions of places and things and stuff, and they're not always completely accurate. I mean, my most accurate one that I ever had, and I'm not saying any level of clairvoyancy or anything, but I had a friend in Sweden and I gave him a series of directions and I told him about people he would meet, and he took those directions and met exactly those people, even down to the point where I told him he would meet a woman, a young girl wearing a red tartan skirt and long black boots. And he met her in the place in Prague where I told him that he would meet her. I don't know who she was, but I can just see it in my mind. You know, I don't have that so much anymore. It's kind of like a stage that you pass through, clairvoyancy and healing and all of those things. And then you go through the teaching and learning, and then you come out into this quiet sort of area with Jesus, where it's like he talks about it as lay you down in the grass, you know, beside the still waters, and all of that's then done. There's just this kind of waiting and this calm and peaceful place where you just wait together with your brothers. But all of these things are witnesses. All of these other things are witnesses: the clairvoyancy, the healing, the teaching and learning, and the realizations and the miracles. They're all part and parcel of bearing witness to something that I'm saying yes to, without trying to define for myself what I think I'm saying yes about or yes for, or trying to preempt anything. So when I gave you that little assignment, I thought that'd be fun for Barrie. You could do that. I mean, it doesn't matter. You didn't take the boys, but anyway, the whole object of the exercise was completed. You know, if you'd have taken the boys, you would have got a skull. They would have made that decision for you, because you're big-hearted, you would have said yes to it and had the thing. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Perfect. The whole thing that occurred there was the opening up of a new perception of things, even in the physical nature. Right? It doesn't occur in the physical nature. It's in your mind that perception opened up. A new way to see things, taking things that you don't normally pick up on. Right. So salvation is a subtle frequency that, like a thread, a golden thread that runs through everything in life that you're learning to pick up on. You're learning to see, perceive it, and become aware of it in situations that ordinarily you would have just passed by. Right. I'll give you another assignment in 3 or 4 months, and we'll talk again. I gave Tina one. I said to Tina there was a church or something. I didn't realize she lived in a neighborhood where there's like a church on every damn corner. But I said to her,
None of
there's
them open.
good for you, and then you turn to the right and there's like a little door or something. You go in there, and it was like what was it? It was like a alcoholics group or something, you said?
No, it was like I was on a mission and I couldn't, no churches were open. And the last
that's right.
church I went to, or one of the last churches, wasn't the very last church, but the one that, because we had talked about it, and I was like, there's one here and there's one here, and you go, it's the second one. And I went to both of them, but when I went to the second one, and I used to teach yoga there, and I went there and it was all blocked up. I went there twice. One day was a holiday, the second day was not a holiday, but it was all locked up. But I knew someone was in there because the lights were on. So I was thinking about it. And so I rang the buzzer, and no one answered. So I called them, and someone answered, and I said, can I come in and pray? And he says, we're not open. I says, what are you talking about? You're not open. Like, I can't come in and just sit and pray. And I looked in my neighborhood, and my neighborhood's full of these people who it would be helpful if they could go into a church and just pray. And I looked, and I was on the phone with him, and I looked, and I was like, I can't just come in and just pray. And he heard it in my voice. And before I hung up the phone, because I made so much effort to get there, and before I hung up the phone, I just started crying, and I was like, I can't believe, like, I can't pray. I can't pray. And he heard me, like, as I was doing that. And it just, still thinking about it, that the people that need it the most, I would think, I mean, we all need it, but they're right there. There's a church right there, and it's locked up, boarded up, people inside, and you can't just come in. They're there. It's not like there's any effort on their part except to open up the doors and allow them in. And just broke my heart. So I ended up going to all the church, like all the churches, and the same thing. And the last one I went to, I don't know if I told you, Dave, the last one I went to, I think I did tell you. The minister came out of the church, and my friend said, "Try this church," and it's called the Nazarene. And I thought, surely Jesus the Nazarene, like surely. And so he came out, and I said, "I've been looking. I just want to come in. I just want to pray. I'm going to sit and I want to pray." And he said, "Let me go check." And I didn't know he was the minister at that time. I thought he was an admin. And he went in and checked, and he came back out. He says, "No, we're not allowing it." And then he told me he was the minister of the church. And I was like, wow, like, you don't take care of your, I mean, in my mind, like, you don't take care of your flock. Like, it's business. And it just was like, just did something to my heart. Just that mission. But you told me I was going to put my blood, and I got like the rose and everything ready to do it. But yeah. Anyway, yeah. So it was
Some things are really just symbolic. You look at it and it's like, you know, you got a rose. I don't remember the particulars.
I got a thorn. I was trying to figure out how am I going to prick my finger. So I did, as I was walking, I was like, okay, I found a thorn, and went to the.
Oh, to
I
put
actually
your
did.
blood on the altar. Yeah.
Yeah, I eventually did speak to him. I went to all of them several times. I eventually did speak to him, but yeah.
You know, during the Reformation of the Catholic Church, was it Thomas More that nailed up his
You
50
told me that.
Yeah, and he nailed it to the front door of the church. 52.
Thomas More or Martin Luther?
I don't think it was
Martin Luther?
Martin Luther was the Reformation. Yeah.
Who was the guy that nailed his?
I think it was Martin Luther. I'm not sure about the nailing, but Martin Luther was the Reformation.
Who was the Protestant, the leader at the start of the Protestant movement?
That was Henry VIII. Because
No, not Henry VIII.
well, Martin Luther
Anyway,
was Luther.
but
Lutheranism is from him, and that was the beginning of
John Wesley. Wesley, wasn't it? Wesley.
like Methodist. He was he was way later.
Anyway, it doesn't
okay.
But yeah, I can see you doing that, Tina, like writing out your list of nailing it to all the front doors of these churches. I'm going to find out who that was, because that started a huge Protestants. I want to say Protestant, but I don't know if it was Protestants. Oh, God. I remember reading a book about it. It was like 25 years ago. And it's the Dark Night of the Soul, the guy that had, I want to say Thomas More, but I don't think it was Thomas More. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So saying yes to something that comes out of left field, you know, is like for a new purpose, right? So everything we do here, everything in our particular framework for life, right, we do with a sense of a new purpose, or we try to. Right? The ego is just as strong as the Christ mind. It's using the power of Christ's mind to make real its version of events. So it takes for that, it's like where Jesus says every morning, set up your day properly, like give your day to God, tell yourself the kind of day you want and all of these things. And you're setting up your day properly so that when you're out and about and you're going to the Great Frog and you're going to wherever you're going and you're on the train and stuff, you're going there with purpose, right? It's not just, hey, there's a pub and a jewelry store and whatever, and let's go. That'll be a nice day out. You're going there with a purpose. That purpose, you don't understand it. You're learning of it as you go. Jesus can tell you exactly all about it in here, but you can't hear this. Right? You can't hear this, which is why the learning is through the application. When I'm reading this book, it's just words on pages that don't mean anything to me because I don't have references for my divinity. I just have Jesus's say-so. I mean, it's a pretty powerful say-so. I mean, if you really get the story of Jesus and what it is, I mean, you can easily form an emotional attachment to the guy. You know, he's like, wow, this guy's really cool. He heals people and he loves, and he just like water into wine and lepers and blind people and shit. Lazarus, you know, the guy's just like in a place of his own as far as people I know goes, you know. It's not like my other friends who like to drink and party and get laid and stuff. So when you say yes, Barry, this is exactly when you're reading those lessons. Those lessons are you saying yes to going to the Great Frog. It's not a different thing, right? You're saying yes to the same thing in those lessons, right, to the unknown. And when you say to me, I'm scared of it, right, the thing that you're scared of is always going to be the unknown. Now, if you can do it in form, if you can actually get on the train, go to the pub, go to the shop, buy yourself a thing, come back here and tell the story about it and have that experience, and then somewhere in amongst that, have this whole other element of perception open up to you, right? Starting to become more conscious, more aware, more open to things, and starting to change. That change can also occur through these lessons, right? But everybody's different. Some of us have been here for 1,000 years and some for 100,000 years. Everybody's different, and I can't tell who's what particularly. But Jesus says, you know, like in the Course, he says, some people will experience it through the lessons that we do today, and some people will experience it through revelation, and some people at point of death and all these sorts of things. Who's for what? I don't know. I don't know who's going to experience what, however they're going to experience it. But the thing I do know is this: if you're doing it in form, if you're doing it as a physical action, like a servitude or a pilgrimage or a thing like that, you can't avoid it because you're actually in the doing. Listen, learn, and do. You're actually in the doing of your own salvation because you're doing it for a whole, right? And it gets revealed as you go. It's like a leap of faith is like exactly that. It's a leap of faith. It's not a leap of, oh, I get what this is about. Right? Same thing in these lessons. But we're looking in, when we're reading our lessons and we get suddenly emotionally charged, we start to feel stuff. What we're looking at is our own integrity and our own honesty regarding what's being presented. Saying, yes, this is what I want. Just because I've got a book telling me I'm the Christ already doesn't mean that I believe I'm the Christ already. I might like the idea. I might have all these incredibly romantic associative ideas about what being the Christ is. And, oh, isn't that lovely? We're all so holy and perfect and whatever. But that doesn't mean that I actually know what that is. It's a bunch of concepts in my head. I need to get from the place where I'm having this relationship with a bunch of concepts in my head to where I'm actually experiencing what the Christ is that those concepts are telling me about, right? The way to that experience is through my own denial and doubt and fear, right? When you get emotional, because all emotions are of the ego, you're poking the bull. You're poking the beehive there, and you're saying, fuck you, bull, fuck you, beehive, get out of my way. I'm not afraid of you anymore, right? And you get emotional about it. It's like, I'm going this way, I'm going straight through, and I'm going to get past those buzzy bees, and I'm going to get past that charging bull with his big horns and all these things that I think I'm afraid of, and I'm going to find out for myself, right? But it's like, what happens is this: you get right up to the bull, you get right up to the bees, and you get right up to whatever it is, and you back off because it starts to get emotional. Because you know on the other side of that is love greater than you're capable to comprehend. And it's too much. It's going to swallow you up. The old Barrie's going to disappear and you're going to be completely absorbed into the heart of love itself. Barrie will cease to exist, never having been. You think that's the end of you, but it's not. It's the beginning of you. But your ego has you convinced that if you actually embrace God's love completely, that you'll cease to exist, you'll die, that'll be it, there'll be no more Barrie. Because that's what it feels like. It feels like all of a sudden you're losing control, you're losing self-identity, you're losing a sense of self, you're being sucked down this kind of plug hole into this kind of abyss of ignorance, abyss of what the hell's going on. And you've got to trust that. That means you're looking in the right place. Right? In the Eastern traditions, they call it the void. It's terrifying. Right? If you truly confront the void in you, if you truly confront your ignorance, it's terrifying. We like to think we're so capable and we got it all under control. And then you find a moment within your own framework here, all of a sudden where nothing makes sense, you have no control, you can't do anything about it. And it's like a runaway train. You've got no brakes, you can't stop it. It's going to be there to reach enlightenment. Right? That moment of fear, that moment of total, Jesus calls it a tiny moment of terror. Right? He only had a 3-year ministry. I don't think he really understands how tiny it is. It's fucking, it seems to be massive. Right? It seems to be this like insurmountable wall of fear and loathing and petrified to go anywhere near it. But it's literally nothing. You know how like an old person can really remember things about their youth and they get it all wrong? It's like me, really. When I've read the Bible like 5 times, and you think I can quote any of it? I've got the stories there, but like I need Tina to keep me on track with it. Right. So it's like when you're reading those lessons and you start to get emotional and you start to have a reaction to them, that's a good thing. That's what should happen. Right? Kev reads the lessons. He has no emotional reaction to it. That's a good thing too. That's exactly what should happen for him. Right? Some guys do, some guys don't. Some guys are going to experience it through the lessons. Some guys are going to experience it in other ways. Right? If you're experiencing it through the lessons, though, then let's make full use of that. Let's recognize that whatever's going on is perfect. Right? Because the one thing that you're learning over and over and over and over again is 1,000 different ways is your own perfection, including the participation you have in your own transformative process. It's always going to be perfect. Right? The whole consideration that we have with it is, how long do I want to take to do with this? How long do I want to drag this out for? Right? And it's like, that's where the real pain is. It's like, oh my God, I've got to face this again and again. It's not going away because a lesson repeats until it's learned. And everything is a lesson, including this. And on the other side of the lesson, you'll understand what you've learned. It's like going to the Great Frog. You don't really understand why and what until you actually are in the process of the doing of it. And then you start to see, holy shit, I started to look at everything in a whole different way. Right? Now, imagine that on a universal scale. Imagine looking at everything in a whole different way on a scale that incorporates the entire universe and the multiverse of universes. Imagine seeing everything in a different way, all at once. That's what you're afraid of. It's that total experience. Right? The ego deals in limitations and it likes to keep things in a parameter where it thinks it can stay in control. But at a certain point, you're just like, fuck it, I'm done with control. I've had enough. I'm stopped. I don't want to control anything. I don't want to control my own process. I don't want to control how I feel. I don't want to control how I think I should feel. I'm done with it all. I just want an experience. It's like St. Francis. St. Francis on his pilgrimage up over, was it the Pyrenees Mountains? And he wasn't the Andean mountain, no, Pyrenees mountain. And he received the stigmata. Why? Because he heard the voice when he was at war, when he went off to war, he heard the voice of God directing him on a different pathway. He came back to his village, all his clothes, and decried his whole way of life, and walked out of his village naked, reborn again in that sense as a servant of God, and set about rebuilding God's church in a physical manner, right? And people that could gel with that and relate to that and could hear him started gathering to him, and he built up this whole monastic order. And eventually he got bored with that because it became corrupt, and he recognized the corruption in association. Right? And he's like, I need to find God. He said, I was experiencing God there for a second, and God gave me this direction to build the church. And now I feel like I've lost my connection with God because I've become so involved with rebuilding the church. It's become his personal crusade to rebuild the church rather than listening to God. Right? So he headed off into the Pyrenees Mountains to go on a pilgrimage, and come hell or high water, he was determined to rekindle his relationship with God again and know more of God, because he felt there was more to know. And he received the stigmata, like the 5 wounds. And eventually he died from those wounds, but he got what he wanted, but it happened to him through the physical nature of the pilgrimage, which is why people go on pilgrimages. I mean, if you do the Franciscan walk these days, it's not really a pilgrimage, because there are places set up to cater for pilgrims. You don't have to live by faith. You just got to get to the next inn and show them your pilgrim's card, and they stamp it, and it's like a tourist trap now. It's like a 700 kilometers of, like, what the fuck are you doing? It's not a true pilgrimage. I know guys that have done it and they get halfway through, and half of that pilgrimage now travels along the side of a highway. It's like trucks and buses, and you see people tramping the highways but horses for courses, Barrie. Sometimes you got to do these little missions in the world, these little things that goes on, like Tina going to the churches, and it's like whatever came out of that for her. But sometimes it takes a little push, a little prompt. I'm glad you did it. And now it's done.
I'm glad I did it. I was resisting for a while. I resisted for a while.
And you were projecting that resistance onto your family. And your family was reflecting it back to you. You see how that works as an action of mind?
Yeah.
If you can see that one, you'll see things differently. I have resistance, but I don't accept that it's me. So I project it onto my family. Energetically, my family pick it up, and they reflect back to me the resistance that I have. Now look at everything with that idea. I'm in a process of resisting love. It's like, all right, let me look at that with the situations, people, and events that I seem to find myself in particulars with, and see where it is that I'm projecting onto others what I don't want to look at in myself. Because the ego is a liar. The ego is cunning, vicious, suspicious, and baffling. That's why if your finger slips from your nose, you're going to be caught up in all the drama of it again and again and again. It's like, hang on a minute. My family is me. Right? It's not me and another people out there playing the parts of being my family. My family is literally me. The figures that I see around me are reflecting back to me my own thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and et cetera, that make up the other half of how I think I am. because the world is dualistic, yin and yang, and I see myself in a certain way and I see other people in another way, and it's not true. I am that way. I am one with all things, above and below. As in heaven, so on earth. I am one with all things. There is no separation. And that's a powerful realization. When that light bulb goes on, you are the dreamer of your dream. You are the master of your destiny. You can change everything by accepting atonement for yourself in the situations where suddenly the idea of separation becomes, hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. I'm in a process of reunion here. Let me accept atonement where I think my family is separate from me. They're not separate from me. They're not resistant to the idea of me going on this little jaunt to London. I am, and I'm projecting it out there onto them. That's why I'm seeing it out there. But you're not aware you're projecting it out there because you make 1,000 decisions every minute at the speed of thought. Boom. And the whole world becomes manifest from it. You're an incredibly powerful being, Barrie, Dave.
It's interesting because like my youngest had a little moment this morning when he realized he wasn't coming with me because he said he didn't want to come. Like, he worried about me. He was like, Dad, be careful. It's a city, Dad. Dad, don't get knifed, Dad. Dad, like, it's giving me instructions. He suddenly got worried. My 15-year-old. I said, don't worry. I know everyone. I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Because we have a joke that I know everyone in the local town. I know a lot of people, and there's a joke. My boys get fed up with me knowing everyone. But, and that was the other thing in London, I love that thing, like, of just like, if you are open, and I got to this point of just being open and get to this point of, I realized that if I put this on Facebook and someone says to me, what were you doing in London? I would literally have to say to them, I don't know. I don't know.
Right. Good.
And I said to the guys in the Great Frog, I said, I've come here to buy something. I'm going to buy something. There'll be something here for me. And that's it. And it's because I've got this great friend in Australia who said I should do so. Anyway, they obviously thought I was a bit crazy, but they were open to it.
Right.
Everyone was open to it. And I had some really lovely conversations there, and then subsequently going back on the tube with the family. And yeah, there was all sorts of little interactions sort of going on that were kind of part and parcel of that. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing here, and I know I look crazy, and I know I don't look like a Londoner and stuff. I have my red crutches and my red shorts. Yeah, it was interesting. It was exciting as well, actually. It became exciting.
You want me to give you one word what it was? It was freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just out there.
You had no agenda. You were following instructions, and you were just there.
Yeah, it was quite a lot of fun.
Right. You gave to your, that's the gift of freedom. I'm giving to myself. In that case, it looked like a particular form of something: pub, shop, buy a ring, whatever. It can look like anything.
Yeah. And there was a little moment, right? I came to the top of one of the really big escalators. It's in one of my pictures, actually, on my Facebook. It's a massive bloody escalator. And as I came to the top of it, there was two women of color in front of me, and one of them just went off on the escalator, and the other one just stood there at the top going, I can't do it, I'm scared, I can't. And she was just standing there, like, blocking the escalator. And I walked up beside her and I had my crutches in my hand and I picked my crutches up to get round her. I said no worries. And I just walked past her and got on the escalator and I turned round and she got on the escalator and she was just looking at me and I put my thumb up. You're on the escalator, right? If I could get on the escalator, she could get on the escalator. So we had a little moment of kind of like there was a little communication there that didn't involve anything much, but it was still
Now, put your
notable.
finger on your nose. Ready? Put your finger on your nose. Who was the woman at the top of the escalator?
Yeah.
It's you.
Okay.
That's you. There by the
Yeah.
grave go I. I give
Yeah.
that information all the meaning it has for me.
Yeah. Yeah. But I could relate to her, you see.
Right, of course,
that
because
moment.
she's you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Literally, not figuratively, literally, she's you.
Yeah. And I was with her as I went past. I was with her, so I turned round and I was with her, and she got on. We went down together, and therefore there was that communication,
Right,
which was lovely. Mm,
right.
okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. So easy.
Yep, it's so easy. Living in the spirit is simple and easy, and it just flows. Everything just flows. You start to experience things, life, connection. A lot of people, it's like putting my finger on my nose here, but a lot of people use the course. This is I did initially for the first 2 or 3 years when I was reading it, use the course as a way of transcending the world. Oh, there is no world. So you kind of like walk around not connecting with the world, not connecting with people, situations, and things, because it seems to suddenly be meaningless and pointless. But it's only when you adopt new purpose. It's like, oh, hang on, I'm still in the world. I have a new purpose for being in the world now. Sure, it's meaningless, and sure, it is the way that I saw it before. But now I'm going to say yes to my new purpose, and I'm going to learn to see the world differently. My perception of things is going to open up in a whole new way, which is exactly what happened in your little adventure in London. If England
I
were
get
a country, I would have sent you to a further away place, but anyway.
it.
There was, I think it was Tina and, Anna's gone, but Tina and Anna, I wanted them to go to Illinois and pick up some books, right? That was an assignment that I gave them. They were to take nothing with them. They were just to go. And neither of them did it, right? They cheated, in fact, and had the books mailed to them and sent to them or whatever. Well, somebody did. I know you guys didn't end up going there.
You're not
But
telling
that-
the full story, but I won't defend myself.
All right. That's the story I heard, that they sent Annie sent. or
No,
somebody
they were
sent.
sent, but no one asked for them to be sent. And also, there was a third person that was was involved. Anyway, but yes.
Yeah, anyway. But it's literally in the doing, right? So the whole motto for the course is listen, learn, and do. The guidance and the instructions for listening and learning can either come from within you or outside of you, right? And you'll just know it. There'll be a frequency or a resonance with what's offered or what's presented, and you'll just know in your heart, you'll be like, man, this is for me. And if you gloss over it in that moment, you'll lose it and it'll have to come around again. It'll often come around in a different way, a different form. And it may take, depending on what your cycle times are, it may take a week or a month or a year or whatever, depending how desperate you are or how committed you are and all that sort of thing. So listen, learn, and do. It's in the doing that the experience comes through. Otherwise, Jesus would just say, listen and learn. It's like, well, hang on, I can't listen and learn in my conscious mind because my conscious mind controls everything. I need to have a leap of faith. I need to be willing to say yes to doing something outside of my regular parameters, outside of my control, so that something else can happen to me over which I have no say about it whatsoever. Right? Otherwise, all you're going to do is stay in a safety zone, a comfort zone of your own making, your own device, set up to protect yourself from the world, and you're going to swear to me black and blue in the face that that's not what you're doing. And I know perfectly well that's what you're doing, because that's what human is. It's a defense. It's a defense against love, a defense against truth. Every activity of human being, of human consciousness, is a defense against the truth. When Jesus comes, he says, I've come to tip all the apples out of your cart. You know, he's a teacher of love, but to teach love, he's got to show you where it is you're not loving towards yourself. You're trying to hold yourself in this static framework of self-identity that is reading the course every day as if that's going to help you. It's not, and it's telling you it's not. It's saying you need to have an experience. It's in the application of the principles in the particulars of the situations that make up the framework of your own learning curriculum that the experience comes through. And you did it, Barrie. Gold tick for you there. Boom, ding. Right? But keep going. You don't get any time to rest. I mean, you can take your rest if you want to, but I don't see why you would want to do that. Right? Keep going. Push. It's like there's a lesson, I think it's lesson 16, where Jesus says, try to reach through the clouds or push through the clouds. If it helps you, imagine my hand reaching out and taking my hand, you know, to get through those clouds. It's like he's talking about the internal veil. He's talking about the limit of your consciousness. Right. Yeah. So, and being so early in the workbook, it's like I was kind of surprised to read that, because that kind of thing to me, I would think that it would be in the second half of the book, you know, where but he's familiarizing you with ideas of going forward, pushing through a threshold, right? Those dark clouds that, I don't see them as clouds. I see them as this kind of wall, this kind of, it's an invisible wall, this kind of, I don't know, it's like a material, like when I find myself in my consciousness and I want to open up and connect again, like that, there's this kind of channel, there's this kind of feeling of going through a wall. And at one time that wall seemed fairly solid, that fabric or that mist or that block in consciousness seemed fairly hard to get through. And now it's not. Now it's nothing, because I've recognized it's nothing. It's just an image. It's just an idea. It doesn't really exist. Right? Fear doesn't actually exist. So all of these ideas then of pushing through, when I say to you guys, like you're reading these lessons, you're having an emotional response, it's like, fuck the lesson for a second. Forget about it. Let's look at what's actually happening while you're reading the lesson, because that's where the experience is. Yeah. It may you to keep reading the lesson, because if you keep reading the lesson, it may take you deeper into that emotional experience, but you can take yourself deeper into it if you just let yourself have it. If you let yourself open up to it and not try to push that emotionality aside so you can keep reading the lesson. Right? Tina gets right into it. When Tina reads those lessons and she gets activated, she'll keep reading the lessons and just get more and more emotional to the point where she can't continue to read the lesson. Right? At that point, it's like, well, let me do the work here. All this emotionality, let my heart open in prayer for the healing of my mind about whatever this energy is coming up and just have the release of it. But it takes a minute. Usually you'll run away, run away, run away. I don't want to face this. I don't want to look at it. And that's where you're at, Barrie. Right? And you may not even recognize you're at that place. You may not even realize that's the action of mind that you're employing to keep yourself separate from love. But that is actually what is going on, because that's what's going on in all of us. We use our little...
I definitely don't know that, if you know what I mean.
Right, I know.
But
I don't know that you don't know that fuck you up.
Yeah. I think what's happened to me this week, and you said, put it in it's all in the past, I know, but I think I'm sure you said, embrace those difficulties, challenges as learning, like thank you, because here's something I can learn from. And that's been like a place for me to be in, along with the don't adjust. So not adjusting and just, what am I learning? What is here? And just like letting it be, not adjusting, and letting it be as a learning place. That's what's kind of made a change, without a doubt.
Now employ that action of mind with the lessons. When you're reading those lessons and you get emotionally triggered,
Yeah.
right? Go to the same place. What's here for me? What is this signifying? All these emotions. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just reading words on a page. Why do I get so emotional about it?
Yeah.
I've given it all the meaning it has for me, but somewhere you know the meaning that you've given it.
Yeah.
Right? Because you are one with all things. Somewhere in your mind, you know the meaning that the lessons are presenting you with. You can't remember it. You can't remember it off the tip of your tongue, like it's there somewhere, but you can't get in touch with it because you've denied it. Right? And because your mind is powerful, that which you deny stays in denial until the point you're willing to accept it again.
Yeah.
And that's the process. The learning, it's like when Jesus says this course has to be overlearned to be learned. It's really a matter of, for me anyway, I look at it that it's really a matter of, I need to be able to be present with God in every waking moment. I need to recognize that even when I'm making my breakfast cereal or whatever, I'm doing it with God.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a whole different experience. And that whole different experience eventually becomes my whole way of life. And eventually I won't even remember how my old way of life was. Like that experience of seeing things in a different way at the Great Frog and the train journey home and all of that sort of stuff. And it's like eventually that way of seeing things will just become your way of seeing things. But for now, you have the way that you saw before as a reference in your thinking, and the way that you saw from the Great Frog as a reference in your thinking. Right?
Yeah.
Represents the past, one represents the present. It's like, oh, cool. I want that excitement or that amazement, right, to be how it is that I see everything, even in my familiar surroundings.
Yeah.
So Jesus says, unless you become a child, right? Children are always amazed. They're in the moment. They're like, wow, they live like that. They live in the same kind of experience you had of going on your mission.
Yeah.
Right? Now, be like that all the time.
Yeah. I have seen my family that way, just been with my family that way, like totally new.
Right, good.
I have
It's
seen
good.
that.
And it's always good with your family too, because they tend to become regular, Learning to see
Yeah.
them brand new every moment is something that's like, yes, thank you, Father.
Yeah. It's very vibrant.
Yeah. It is. But we seem to have to push through these moments of self-doubt and self-pity and loathing and rejection of love and all of that. And it's like, man, you've almost got to be like tricked into, you know, giving yourself a break. It's not really a trick. I mean, you're kind of asking for it. You're sitting here in these Zoom meetings saying, I want this. At least that's what I'm picking up on. I want this. I want what this is about to be prevalent and occurring and living and alive in my life. All of a sudden, I send you on a mission and you get something else happens and you're like, wow. Or I hope you went, wow. You know, like, wow. Yes, wow, and thank you. That's the only 3 words you need in life. Yes, wow, and thank you. If you find yourself ever in a situation where you can't respond with any of those 3 words, then you need help, a 4th word. Help me, Father. Because there is nothing ever presented in your journey that's put in front of you that is not by the grace of God, regardless of what you want to think about it.
Yes, well, thank you. Oh.
You could have sat there and said, oh, Dave's just making shit up. And yeah, I'm just making shit up. How do I know where I get these ideas from? How do I know where all this information comes from and this connection that I have with the universe? What the hell's it all about? I'm just as in the dark about that as you. But I've learned to say yes to it. I've learned to just zip my lip, say yes, wow, and thank you, and just trust that even if I don't know what's going on here, that there's one greater than me that knows what's going on here. And I'll find out that when I'm willing to take that leap of faith and make a step. Take the first step. The rest will be shown. You take a leap of faith and then God will catch you. And it's all about taking those leaps of faith and being caught in however that looks, because you need those witnesses to truth in you. You need those witnesses to the fact that there actually is a better way, a different way to see yourself, the world, and everything, which will lead you to your enlightenment.
Yeah, those witnesses.
And you saw that. So.
Yeah. Those witnesses in truth.
Right, exactly. And you're learning to see it now, Barry. You can't sit there next week and tell me you don't know what I'm talking about.
No.
Right. It's, you know, like in Zen Buddhism, there's a temple, I can't remember the name of the temple. There's a temple in Brisbane where they're very traditional Zen Buddhists. There's not many practitioners. I think there's a lot of people that are like just come and go, you know, like any religion. There'll be a core of people that really fabricate the main body of the church, and then there'll be a lot of people that just sort of go there because people go there on a Sunday. And sometimes it takes a while until you become fully oriented with things. But in Zen Buddhism, they have a little stick called the bow. And when you're meditating, the master comes around and he'll hit you soundly across the back. It's like a cane, you know, and he'll hit you across the back. And if you have a reaction to the cane, your meditation's not deep enough. But if you feel it, if it snaps you out, when you're truly meditating, like Jesus says, when you meditate, right, I think this is in the second half of the workbook, but when you meditate, you'll have no sensation of the body at all. Right? I have had that. I don't meditate in that way anymore, but I have had that several times. But it's always been through a very, like, there's got to be a determination associated with the meditation. It can't be just like, oh, I think I'll meditate today. Right? Which is why I don't meditate as a ritualistic kind of thing. I meditate when I feel I really need to, and then there's a more of an integrity with it. And I'll sit there and I'll force myself to be quiet, you know. And it's like, if you really want to meditate, go and sit by a busy highway and trucks and buses and whatever, and that'll force you to focus harder than if you go and sit in a quiet place.
Yeah.
So, but there has to be this determination, and like the ego always wants to sit on the surface, and the passion of your heart is going to be that determination to really embody what's going on and to take it on totally. Right? Which is why when you read these lessons, you can read them one day and it's like, oh, that's a nice lesson. And then you can read it the next day and be like, wow, I just heard something. I just really got what that, you know.
Angela was saying that the other day about the lessons, talking to Angela.
Right.
It's like, yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah. All good. But never underestimate, you know, like the ego, that it just wants you to coast along on the top. Talk to Jesus, just lip service, blah, 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 blah. You know? But it's when we put ourselves really into active mode that we become empowered, we become present. All of these things, our purpose absorbs and emanates from us, and all of this stuff. We're no longer like these superficial, nice day today, isn't it? How's the weather? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, hang on, man. I've got a purpose that transcends all of that crap. I don't care about the weather. Look out the damn window. There's a kind of a presence. You hold yourself accountable. You activate yourself. Right? And you have to activate yourself. Like Fran's totally activates herself. She's like, bam, and she's on. It's like a game face, bam, and it's on, it's happening, boom. That's a place, I mean, even I think it was Krishnamurti said, you can't sit in that place 24 hours a day. It's impossible. You can't be self-activating 24 hours a day. You can't be completely present. I mean, Jesus pretty much was. And the funny thing is, in the course, Jesus asked us to have more patience than he had. It's like, what? Are you kidding me? You're the most patient guy on earth. Even when they nailed him up, you know, it's like, forgive them, Lord, they know not what they do. I can imagine if that was me, I'd be like, you fuckers. I'm going to get you in the afterlife. It's like, nah, Jesus is just like, forgive them, Father. But it sets a bar, you know. It's like if Jesus appears to you and he goes, I need you to have more patience than I had, Barrie. It's like, holy shit, that's some kind of bar to set. But it tells me what I got to aim for. It tells me what I need. You know, it's like, thank you, Jesus. It may seem impossible, but I'm entitled to miracles. Even down to the slightest little sigh of discontent. That purification process, I'm not even allowed to sigh. I'm not even allowed to go, God. How many of those a day do I have? Oh, not this again. It's like, oh, bugger. No, not even that. Not even a bugger.
In that sense, Dave, can I ask a little question?
Yeah.
Is the ego kind of like the enemy in that? Or is the ego...
You would have to make it real to be an enemy. You would have to give it a value, you know. But Jesus says in the Course, the ego is not your friend. It wants you dead. Make no uncertain decisions about that, right? But your ego is a part of your mind, let's say, that has become comfortable with the idea of death. It loves the idea of being validated as being separate from God, even though it's not really real. It's completely insane. It's completely preposterous and has no credibility to it at all. But the insane can believe anything they want. To them, it's real. Right? So when I talk about the ego, I'm not really talking about it as being separate from me as something else. I'm completely nuts. Right? But in my own association, I've recognized my insanity. I've recognized the insanity of my position, the paradox of how I find myself, and I've accepted it. Right? In the acceptance of my sanity, there is my sanity. Right? Only a crazy person doesn't know they're insane, doesn't know they're crazy. As soon as you realize you're crazy, you cease to be crazy, because you would have to be able to see yourself from a different position other than from within your craziness. Right? Which means the only other position that you could see yourself in that's not in your craziness is not crazy. It's like, holy shit, I just see that I'm completely crazy here, completely insane. I have no clue what's going on, where I am, what I'm doing. I'm making it all up as I go along. Why would I continue to do that once I see it? I'm just going to stop. I'm going to listen, learn, and do, and I'm going to follow a guide, and I'm going to follow the voice that is not of my own making, and I'm going to say yes, wow, and thank you to whatever's put in front of me, knowing that if there is only the will of God, it must be by the will of God that whatever is put in front of me appears. And it must be for my only good, because God is only love, which includes me, because God is everything. Right? Don't try to work out the ego. That's what ego is. Right? Simply accept it for what it is. It's suspicious, vicious, cunning, and baffling, and you cannot beat it because you're trying to beat something that doesn't exist. You can't fight with your ego. You can just choose not to listen to it. Right? It's like an old recording. You know, when you put on in the old days, a record, and it'll go back to the start, and the needle will start again, zzz, zzz, and it'll play over and over and over. That's the ego. It's like, hang on a minute, I know this already. I know this story. I know this music. I know what it's singing about. It's shit. I've heard this so many times. I've done this same experience of life day after day after day. Again, I want something else. I want something else that's not of my own making to occur, to show me that I'm not stuck in this loop of life and death, or birth and death, rather. And that's exactly what happened when you went to the Great Frog. Something else opened up for you, a new vista, a new way to see things. And it's like automatically your ego is going to try and analyze that. And what's going on here? How come, like, and pull it apart and pinprick it and test it and point your brain at it and whatever. But it doesn't matter. You saw it. Right? Something else happened by you being willing to say yes to something that wasn't of your own making.
Yeah. Thank you.
Can I ask something about that?
Yeah.
I think you answered it, but it's a little, and again, I don't want to study the ego either.
You kind of have to, in a certain sense.
Yeah.
Right? You've got to
That's
understand what it is that you're doing in your own mind so you can make a decision not to do that.
That's what I was thinking, like the attack that was, that I perceived, that being outside of myself. I was leaving the message. I was like, well, it's my own stuff. So it's my own denial that's coming up. It's not, and then there's this part of me that goes, it makes it seem like there's something outside of me that's just trying to prevent me from opening up to truth or being vigilant for truth. It feels like it's something outside, but it's my own stuff. So it's my own denial. So it's not any separation. There's not an entity that goes, oh, she's on the right track, let me stop her. It's me going, oh, is it? Or is it? Or does it matter?
It can only be because you're still looking for validation outside of yourself. And when you don't get that validation, it seems to be that the world's presenting you with that you're doing it wrong. The world is the idea of the validation of a false belief.
Yes, and I'm insisting. Yeah.
Right.
I'm insisting.
Right. So just don't do that.
Yeah, and just to be totally defenseless. And you were saying something about that,
exactly.
you're totally defenseless. I feel like there's subtle ways that I say I'm being defenseless, but not really, because there's still this protection.
You can't be defenseless, right? You can't just be totally defenseless. You have to choose to be totally defenseless. Right? There's a difference. You can't be defenseless because you don't even know what that is really. You'll make up ideas about what defenseless is.
Okay.
Oh,
okay.
defenseless to me is I don't react, I don't say nothing. And that may be part and parcel of it. But when I choose to be totally defenseless, I'm choosing to trust God.
Okay.
Right? So that idea of choose again, it's conscious.
No. Okay. That's helpful.
All right.
Yeah.
Right. Everything is about choice because choice is the only power that you have available to you in this world. I either choose to see with love or choose to see through the eyes of fear. But I have to choose. I have to choose. And the course is a curriculum in learning to make choices, to make better choices. It's easy to get caught up in spiritual rhetoric and just say, "Oh, I'm going to be defenseless. I am defenseless," and it's like, look out because you'll see how not defenseless you actually are.
Well, that's what I want to say. Like that, you can't. It's like that lesson of in my defenseless. It's like I can't plan ahead. I can't. It's like in the moment. It's like in the moment.
It's in the moment. That's it. It's
and even
in
now,
the moment.
and even now, like I can't even.
Even
and
now.
my mind wants to loop around and go and look at what happened and then judge that. And it's like in the moment, in the moment, in the moment, in the moment, in the moment.
Forget about the past.
Yeah.
You know.
And the
You'll have
choices.
it. Like let's look at Barry's situation for a second, right? So Barry said yes to something and had an experience of seeing things differently, right? Which is pertinent and prevalent to him in his own transformative process. But that's done now. In his mind, something occurred that was outside of his regular framework. That's all that needs to happen. It's not how it occurred. It's not where he was, who the people were, what he said, none of that stuff. That's just the fabric. All that happened was there was a shift. There was a moment where his regular way of seeing was interrupted and something else happened because he said yes to something else happening. Right? He had no fucking clue why I was sending him to London to have a beer and buy a ring and whatever. Not really. He just knew it had something to do with a higher purpose. Right? It's the same, but it's in the moment. So the next thing that happens, the next time Barry gets presented, whether it's me or somebody else, can you go here and do this and whatever and do that? It's like with the recognition that nothing could possibly be asked of me unless it was for my higher purpose, Barry can safely and comfortably say yes, wow, and thank you, and be about his father's business. Right? Because that business is for him. It wouldn't matter if it was somebody on the internet, you know, can you go down the street and buy me a bottle of milk? It's like, yes, I can. It's like that movie, Yes Man, with Richard Carey. What's his name? Brian?
Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey, right? That movie, Yes Man. He kind of fucks it up a bit because he takes it on board as a religious observance rather than something where his own sense of presence and whatever, you know, it's not involved there. He can actually say no. And that's where in salvation, there's no hard, fast rules where you have to say yes. But sometimes
like
that
your
yes
your post about blocking people. I mean, that's what comes to me.
Right, exactly. Sometimes that looks like just blocking people. That Sue-Ann Ockawall, whatever her name is, you know, it's like, and there have been others. Sometimes you recognize, all right, here I am. This is me. I'm presenting myself an opportunity to recognize something greater than what's being presented. And then what comes back is my rhetoric. You know, it's like, I'm not interested in that. I want what's greater. I want to go beyond that. It's like, that's not helpful because it's simply using a past reference as a way to where I can think I can guide myself now. I can't. I've got to be brand new in this moment. I can't walk the world defenselessly. I have to choose for it now to be defenseless. Otherwise, what am I doing? I'm using my past references of being defenseless as a way to think that this is how I should be now. So no, I'm going to choose to be defenseless now. I don't know what that looks like, what that means, you know, but I'll know about it when the situation where it seems to apply comes up.
Perfect.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Until then, be at peace.
Yeah.
Just be at peace, you know,
Yeah.
be at peace
Yeah.
and share your love
Yeah.
and everything. You don't need to
Yeah.
be making those confrontations all day, every day. I mean, we tend to get caught up with that idea because the workbook, you know, 365 lessons, one a day, 5 times a day. And so we put ourselves in this mental kind of like, you know, and like, but there comes a point where you have to take your rest. It's like, all right, I get it.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. It's very helpful.
Students studying for a university degree or something, you know, that's like every day, study, every day, all day, into the wee hours of the night. And, you know, finally you get a degree or finally you get some sort of thing where you don't have to study anymore. Spring break. What are you going to do? Keep studying? Just relax, chill. But each one of you, every one of us has to work that out for ourselves. It's like, it's our own journey. It's not like Jesus is in charge of it or Dave's in charge of it or the Course in Miracles is in charge of it. It's like I take what I want to take at a given time. That's the curriculum. You're not in charge of the curriculum, but you take what you want to take at a given time. It's like for me, I didn't really have a choice what I wanted to take at a given time. It was dumped on my head. It's like, holy shit, I better be about this. But if I was starting from scratch, I'd probably be a little gentler on myself. You know, there's still that awareness that, hang on a minute, I've got something here to fulfill. I've got something here to do. But think in terms of tens of thousands of years. You don't have to cram it all into one incarnation, but yet the experience of your oneness is going to appear to you in a single instant somewhere in your timeline. One moment. You don't know. You don't know when that's going to be. You've got no way to tell how much time you're going to collapse in this lifetime, whether you're going to be back for another life. You don't know any of that stuff. Just deal with what's in front of you. Right? I don't want to come back for another lifetime.
I don't, but
right. Who the hell does? And I guarantee you that you won't. If you're at the place where you're reading the Course in Miracles, it's like you won't be back here in your next incarnation. I guarantee you that.
This Buddhist monk told me that. It was funny.
Right.
He was saying, I call him the Buddha on the bus. Like I was on a bus with him, and we just started talking, and I just couldn't get off the bus. I stayed with him the whole time. But he was saying, don't be afraid. He was just like telling me things. He says, don't be afraid of death because it's just going to be a moment, and you're gonna something, and you're gonna come right back. And I go, well, I don't want to come back. He says, it's the same thing. It's just going to be a moment, and then you won't come. I was like, okay.
Right. Buddhists love coming back. They love the idea of reincarnation.
Yeah, I was like, I don't want to.
I like the idea of immediate salvation now. Right? But if it's not immediate salvation now, if you're not experiencing the illumination of your mind here and now, then you're still in the process of purification. Right? But it's like, it's not up to me. That last step is taken by God.
That was a lesson yesterday.
Right. It's just my job to learn to become revelation ready through being miracle about life, which is saying yes, wow, and thank you. And then forgiving myself for maybe judging it instead of saying yes, wow, and thank you. All of that sort of. It's quite simple. You know? It's like you have a thing going on, Tina, where you're able to, if you're aware of it, you're probably not, you're able to slip past that level of consciousness where you think there's a Tina. I've seen you do it twice during our Zoom meetings. One of those times you actually caught yourself doing it. And you're like, what the fuck? What was that? That's something that it's like going beyond or pushing beyond those clouds, like where Jesus is and stuff. It's like it'll get easier and easier and easier the more you make effort to do it. Right? The more you're still. Be still and let it happen. Just be still and let it happen. Here I am, Lord. I want to remember you more than anything. I don't want the world. I'm done with the world. I'm done with all of this shit. Death. I'm done with all my false belief in separation. I need an experience, right? And ask for the experience. Ask for it. Demand it. You're entitled to it. Demand it. Ask, like, Jesus, what are you doing? Stop wasting time. Right? Remember, there's a caveat to that. You know, Jesus isn't going to give you an experience if you're just going to go out and squander it and give that power of that experience to your ego and turn it into some story about something. Right? I did that already. I spent the first 3 years running around going, woohoo, and not bothering with Course in Miracles, particularly, you know, like it didn't. I was so high as a kite off the experience. It's like St. Francis threw off all his clothes and ran out of the village naked. Yes, God has called me. Woo! You know, but he wasn't particularly helpful to anyone in that time. It took a minute for him to realize, hang on, I've got work to do now. Right? Jesus needs you as a minister of God. It wouldn't do any good to superinflate your ego and give you all these revelatory things if you're just going to squander it. And that is what happens. Like every single one of us. We don't know what to do with that much love. What do you do with that much love? I'm afraid the hell of even a little bit of love. Imagine if I had an experience of universal love. If a total stranger came up to me in the street and really push their case for how much they love me, that would be fucking confronting. I feel like I need to tell them to get away from me, you crazy person. Or, you know, like if they were just so persistent that I understood how much they loved me. You know? There's a moment where, hang on, what's going on here? This is not normal. Maybe in our circles now, maybe it's becoming more normal and more, it's not that it's going to happen or anything, but you know what I mean? It's like we would be less resistant of it. And then do I call the person crazy or do I call them my savior? It's like, wow, thank you. I may not relate to what you're saying on the same level that you're saying it from, but man, thank you. Because it's pushing every damn button I got. And that's what I want. Because if it was up to me, I'd just keep myself safe and enclosed in my little comfort zone. I wouldn't let anyone push any buttons I got. Literally letting those buttons be pushed is how I find my blocks. Oh, shit, I have a block. Okay. Bing, finger on my nose.
Yeah. Getting pushed all day long.
Yeah, good. Good. Don't forget to take your rest.
Yes. I'm grateful to hear that.
Sometimes, you know, go back to Jesus and let him do the heavy lifting.
I took my rest last week with Greg, I gotta say, because I was like,
right, good.
Comes up again. I was so grateful that you told me to share with Bernadette, because I would not have gone, because I was like, so much is coming up. I gotta be in my circle. I gotta be on my knees. I can't move. Again, every Sunday, I'm like, I want to go be with him because he's like just him, like not him. The light that comes through him is so powerful. I just have to be there.
Right.
And I know I'm healed. And I was like, every week, I'm like, I need to go. I need to go. And I'm like, no, I got to be in my circle. I gotta let this come up. I can't. I know that this is going to be power. And I went, and it's like, as soon as I saw his face, it was like my heart just cracks open. And we met afterwards.
He's a beautiful
Oh.
teacher. He always teaches from the heart.
Oh,
Like, when he teaches, I hear him. Like it's just an
oh
incredible.
God. It was like the ego had really like got me messed up. And I'm grateful, like I said, because if you hadn't said that, and it's all orchestrated, then I would not have gone. I would have done it again,
Right.
like just suffered
Right.
again. That's why I found I don't realize anything. I don't know
You have
anything.
to take your rest. You have to do that. It's like in these Zoom meetings, in these lessons and everything, it's hardcore.
It's so hardcore.
Right? It's hardcore. And sometimes you just want, look, Fran, she's like, nah, whatever.
I know, she's amazing.
1,000 lifetimes. Sometimes you just want someone to tell you all the nice stuff and connect with you on that level where it's all heart. It's all just soft. And it's all just like, I can relax. I need to do nothing.
Yeah.
Right. But then learning that I need to do nothing means that I don't interfere. How do I stop fucking interfering? It's all I ever do.
But you know what? It was also a witness to this, the goodness of God, like so good, because
Yeah.
even what he said, like it was like so orchestrated. I don't even take that for granted, because you said it, and I wouldn't have done it had you not said that. And it was like that just felt like Jesus is like, she's not getting it. Help her. And then the what Greg was talking about was exactly what has been going on with me. And he said to me afterwards, he says, this meeting was for you. And it was like,
Yeah.
like, oh my God, it was just so beautiful. But that wasn't Greg. That was like Jesus, just God. And then
Right,
that's the other
exactly.
thing, all of those little Jesus symbols. Whenever I kind of ask, it's like there's something will come in, like someone's name will be Jesus, or it's just so beautiful, like this constant reminder, like, I love you. I love you. I know this is hard. And that's just, I mean, maybe I'm making stuff up, but that's how I get through the fucking day.
We all are
You
making
know?
it up.
Yeah, exactly.
We're making
But
it all fucking up.
that's
Yeah.
beautiful. That just feels so beautiful to just know.
Hey, next time you see one of his links for one of his meetings, just can you send it to my thing? I might join in one of his meetings.
Yeah, it's okay.
He was an incredible teacher for me. Like many years ago, I'd love to go and say hi, but I remember sitting with Ted for like 6 years, every day for 6 years, all day, every day for 6 years. I sat with Ted, and for Ted, I had to strain to hear things because his frequency and my frequency, he had this blusterous kind of what would you call it? American, like, yeah, just kind of way about him. And, and I didn't gel with that because I was like hippie man. I was all like, hey, man, peace and love, just vibe out and whatever. And Ted was like, da, 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 da. But he was still teaching exactly the same message. And then one day Greg came from Wisconsin, and I think he did like 2 classes or 3 classes. He was there for like a week or 2 weeks or something. And I walked in on one of his classes. Ted had gone somewhere for a bit, and I walked in on one of his classes, and I'm like, oh, cool, new teacher, and like there was often visiting people. We had Colin Tipping and a few other guys that are quite sort of like, woo.
I must go.
Huh? Oh, you got to go? All right. Peace and love, Fran. But I remember sitting with Greg, and Greg talks like poetry. Greg talks like art. Greg's way. And there was another guy that I met. He wasn't the teacher of the course. He was just this Italian guy. His name was Marco. And there was about 30 of us, maybe 40 of us that went one day. We left the meditation center, left the healing center, and we drove about 20 kilometers down the coast to this bluff right on the ocean. And there was some picnic tables and whatever set up there so we could have a picnic. And we're all vegetarians, so we're having this big vegetarian feast overlooking the ocean. It's beautiful, the horizon, just water as far as I can see. No beach or anything. It's just a straight drop, cliff top. Anyway, Marco had this little accordion, little squeeze box music accordion. He was Italian. Hello, I'm accord. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful energy about him. And he looked at me and he goes, we were sitting at one table together and a few other people. He looked at me and he goes, I'm gonna play a song for the dolphins, like that. And there was like 10 meters between our table and the edge of the cliff. And I looked out over the water. I couldn't see a dolphin everywhere, like anywhere. Like there was no dolphins, literally no dolphins. I walked with him to the edge of the cliff and there was a few other guys came. No dolphins. I looked down, nothing, no dolphins. Marco started playing his little accordion, right? This is because everything's just energy, right? Started playing his little accordion. Within 1 minute, there was dolphins leaping out of the water right in front of him. Now, where did they come from? Like they were responding to his music, or were they responding to his decision to play them music? But whatever was going on there, I was dumbfounded for days. Because Marco was new to the course. He just came from a beautiful heart space, like kind of pathway in life. And I came from that beautiful heart space pathway in life, like living in a commune and whatever, and everyone was serving each other and honoring each other and all that sort of stuff. And I feel like I've lost that through doing the course. I feel like it's now very clinical and very whatever, but I realize that's how I get used. So I don't really care about it too much. I know it's still there in my core. But this thing with Marco was just mind-blowing. And it's Greg, right? So I'm listening to Greg one day and he's talking in a very florid kind of beautiful way, picturesque sort of way. And I heard something that I'd been struggling with. I heard like a light bulb went on because of something he said. And in my consciousness, I went, oh, thank you, like that, like, wow, thank you. I didn't utter the words out. He looked over, there's like 50 people in the room. He looked over at me and he goes, you're welcome, out loud. I put it in my mind. That's right. His voice in my mind said, you're welcome. And I had 3 or 4 moments like that, not just with him, but with other people, where the connection in mind actually transcended the bodily, the physical nature of things. So, woo, that was a, mind-opening thing. So, but a beautiful teacher. You get to, if you see his, actually, I can't remember.
I'll send it. I sent it to someone.
Yes. Send it and I'll post it I'll post his link on my page because Barrie, you'd enjoy it too. Marielle, you'd enjoy it as well. Like his.
That's Angela.
Oh, it is too. How come it says Marielle?
Because she's using someone else's computer.
It's very confusing. Marielle.
You're funny.
Anyway, that's it. Any questions? Anything? Barrie, well done. You got the ring. That's the ring of salvation, the ring of atonement on his finger.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings.
Beautiful. Yeah, the Lord of the Rings.
Ring of the Lord.
One leap of faith, one step, beginning of many more.
Yeah. It was fun. I'm tired though.
I know it's like 1 o'clock for you guys in the morning. Yeah, isn't it? It's quite late.
Yeah, I was
at 1 a.m.
It should be about 1 a.m. for you guys.
No, it's just gone midnight here.
Oh, okay.
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 All right.
Well,
Well, I'm going to go. I've got a suicide and spirituality meeting today in the park, so I'm going to go and get myself.
You didn't tell me something. I'm just saying it real fast. You didn't tell me something about another Dave. You were going to tell us something, but you just tell it now because it's getting late. But
oh no, I'll tell you that.
I think
personally.
Okay. I think
it was just a funny little aside thing because we were talking about that guy's podcast.
Okay.
It's not really.
I thought it was something that you wanted to do. That's why I'm bringing it up, just to remind you.
No, it's just me being very judgmental.
Oh, okay. Well, hand it over.
I know, right? I know it's funny, but I'll tell you about it. But it's like when I was listening to it, I'm going, oh my God, really? No, get out! I can't listen to any more of this shit.
Okay.
But anyway, that's where it's at.
Finger on my nose.
Learning not to judge. Exactly. Finger on the nose.
I didn't know that was there.
Yeah. Well, there's been a few. Who was the other guy? And I recognize this because Ted used to tell stories about these guys, right? Because he's been in it like right from the start, 1975, and like he met Bill Thetford, I think, and whatever, and all of these sorts of things. So Ted was up there with all the cast and crew of the original inception of A Course in Miracles and the old man and whatever. Like it sort of came about pretty quickly, Judith Scutch and everything. And so he always had stories to tell of all of these guys that suddenly picked up the course and decided, yep, this is going to be my life vocation, my life path or whatever, but hadn't had any kind of experiential connection with it. It was just all conceptual and stuff. And he used to talk about you've got to get beyond the concepts of the experience. And he would use particular teachers as the example. Ken Wapnick was one. And remember, we had two ladies that came to the healing center. So Ken had I don't know what it was. It must have been some kind of like small college of sorts that he'd set up to teach the course, right? And he would have students come there and teach. And we had two ladies that came to our center in Australia who were traveling the world, who had spent 2 years or something with Ken in his thing. And they sat with Ted for one day and realized the experiential nature of the course. And we've been sitting with Ken for 2 years and just getting our ears bashed with the concepts and not having any place where those concepts were actually applied. It was just like being lectured, so. And one of the ladies was a Catholic nun. She'd been a Catholic nun for 20 years, and she's like, man, all of a sudden, like one day or whatever they were there for a week or whatever, she said one day or 1 week, whatever, with Ted, and the whole Bible, the course, everything came to life. It was no longer just words on a page. It was like kapow. All the switches were activated in there. And the other lady was much the same. She's like, I can't believe how you guys teach this course. But anyway, but there was a few guys like that. There was a few show ponies, Ted used to call them. They're just out there. And I remember his story of the particular guy I was going to tell you about was like he walked in. So master teacher, right, Dear One, the original Dear One, who had his illumination in Nagasaki. Dear One was teaching one day in Wisconsin, and this guy walks in just out of the blue, out of the street, whatever, with Ted. Ted had found him somewhere, picked him up somewhere, and they were doing stuff. And Ted brought him to the healing center thinking it would probably be a cool place for him to be, whatever. And the old man looked over at him mid-talk and said, what the hell's he doing here? He didn't even know who he was. He just knew the energy. Mm-hmm. He just picked up on the energy. What the hell's he doing here? Because he wasn't there to learn. He wasn't there to participate and integrate. He was there to boost his own identity as a world teacher of A Course in Miracles, et cetera, and get out of it what he could rather than to give what he could. That's why everybody else was there. They were there to give. And that's the difference. You've got to be there to give. What that story transmutes to these days, I have no clue. But when I was listening to that podcast this morning or yesterday, I was like, oh my God. But again, that's just my judgment, right? So, exactly. I'm forgiven and I shall forgive.
Well, it keeps slipping. It's a
funny thing. It's like a game that happy children play. It's a funny thing. It's just like this circus sometimes, and you look at it and you go, I'm glad I'm not playing that part. I'm playing.
Well, Dave, I wanted to say this. When that guy was coming for me, it was so crazy. When I think of it, like what we're talking about, because he was relentless. Teacher? No. The guy that came for me, not really an attack, but that what I was telling you about. But he did something where I couldn't even leave him. Like I was trying to I'm done with this. I'm not going to do this anymore. And he did something where it was like he would not leave. Like he stayed on the line, and then other people joined the line. It became a whole thing. But it was, if I look at it like my denial, it was relentless. It was like, no, I'm gonna just make you stay right here, right there. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
crazy.
you'll get those, right? So like the zealot, the guy that just has to, and they mow you,
Oh,
right? They
yeah.
mow you down with whatever it is their point of view is. I had a guy who was a Buddhist, beautiful guy. I loved him dearly, like incredible. I think his name on Facebook is Om Raw or something like that. He's kind of like a presence there. Huge Buddhist orientation. I have a Buddhist orientation. It's not massive. I've been to Buddhist temples and sat with novice monks and abbots and whatever and things like that and figured it all out. But I realized it wasn't for me, and I saw the shortcomings of Buddhism, right? Versus, because it's curtailed by the religiosity of it. And we had this thing, and he would not stop. He just kept like coming back. And I saw in the interaction that me being me was provoking him to presenting whatever that was. And so I made a decision, I'm just going to keep provoking him. And it got to the point where he started to present an idea of being angry, right? And whatever. And I'm like, yes, this is good stuff. We're finally, some shit's happening, And it came out where, right? And so Buddhism, perfect, peaceful Buddhism, peaceful, lovely, hurt nobody, kindness to all living beings, Buddhism. This guy had been a Buddhist practitioner for 25 years, 30 years, whatever it was. Finally, it got to the point where his declaration to me was, dude, I know martial arts. I can find you anywhere in the world and come and kill you. And I stopped right there. I stopped. I never said anything like that to him. I stopped right there and I just wrote the word checkmate, right? And I knew he would get it. And I didn't hear from him for about a week. And then he was off social media for like a week or 2 weeks or something. And then finally he came back on and he sent me this beautiful thing going, dude, you really pulled the rug from under my feet and showed me something, and I'm grateful and whatever. So just remember that in your purpose, right, with that guy railing on you and whatever, in your purpose, God goes with you everywhere you go. He can rail on you, but is he going to rail on God?
Yeah.
What can he say? Where can he go with unconditional love?
Well, that's when I was thinking that when you said that you provoked him or whatever, I felt like I did that a little bit, and that's why that's why I asked the
I didn't
question.
realize I was provoking him at first. I didn't
Well,
realize. I thought we were having a conversation. Then it started to get a little bit narky and.
Well, he made me. I was like the attack was like so. Even in the world, I felt like, does this really bother people? And I just started to laugh, and my laughter.
Right. Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh, maybe that's not cool. You know what I mean? My mind. But anyway, whatever. Like you said, it's a choice to be defenseless. It's not. I don't know how it's gonna look, but it was just a choice to be defenseless. But I was like, really, that hurts people? I mean, in my mind, like, and I started to just laugh, and it really, like, he just was so pissed off. And then he made it where I couldn't get off because I was like, okay, this is enough. I understand why, and I'm just done. And he made it where I couldn't get off the line, and then other people could start to hear what was going on. And then other people started to tell the story about it, but they didn't know it was me. And so I was tempted to be like, that was me. And I thought, why would I do that? Why would I go, yeah, I was the victim of this story. So I just totally like walked away from the whole thing and let that just kind of play out on its own. But it's helpful for when you said, because I went back and I kept going back going, that's not true defenselessness. Me laughing at him is not true defenselessness, but the choice to be defenseless, I don't know how it's going to look, and it's in the moment, and I'm just going to let it go. So anyway.
Right. I think it was, I forget who it was actually. I was going to say Sigmund Freud, but one of those classic psychologists said, laughter is the bastion of the weak. It's the safe hold of the weak, right? It's a weak person's response, right? Whereas reason, it's like you don't know what to do, so you laugh. It's like people laugh at things they don't understand. And it's like, well, laughter, it's like, well, obviously there's something to understand because this guy's presenting a point.
He was calling me a bitch. He was calling me a bitch.
Oh, right. And you did. You did.
What's that?
You should have took it. Yeah, I am a bitch.
Yeah, and that's what I was like, like, really? That's supposed to hurt me? Like, okay.
Yeah, yep. Bitch. I'm a bitch. I'm a boss.
Yeah. And then, started calling me all this. It's like, okay.
But you got to remember, though, you're different now, Tina, right? You're not like people,
Mm.
right? You won't understand how much friction you cause in the world. It's like people that they'll get an irritation, they'll start to scratch and itch, and they won't even know what's going on. They just feel like they're from you. And then there's going to be other people that'll want to be like, I've got to be with this person. I don't know what the hell it is. And of course, the ego is going to be like, oh, it must be physical attraction, but it's not. It's the light, right? It's your light. It's either going to be scare people off or bring people in. It won't bring many people in, probably. It'll just bring a few that can hear this, 2 in 10,000 maybe. But it's going to, for the rest of the people that are still interested in serving the world, it's going to be scary as hell. I have people like, we went to the pub down the road here, like they serve dinner and beer and whatever there with my friend. And we were talking to some people there and I could feel the energy, right? I wasn't saying particularly much at all, just being kind and courteous. And my friend was like, yak, 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 talking about just stuff because he's not a spiritual person particularly. But I could feel the energy pushing away and people just kept getting up and leaving the table. You know, I got up and left the table and I went outside and they all came back. Right. And I'm looking at my finger on my nose. I'm like, of course, you know, like everything's just a reflection of my own thing. It's like, it's funny stuff, but it's like I forget that I'm different. You know, I forget that I'm not how I used to be, that something in me is vibrating on a different level. And it takes a lot to kind of, Jesus says, be a sheep in wolf's clothing, you know, but it's like, I think I do a pretty good job of that. I'm fitting in, but I have a different purpose in things. But I think sometimes, you know, like the little hind leg of the sheep might show or something. I don't really know.
Well, in my own hatred too. I mean, I just, that's my own hatred. Just
Right. Well, you know, you can own that. And
that's what
if it triggers you. But you got to be honest about it. It's like, this is my own peace of mind that I'm looking at here. Am I at peace or am I trying to laugh it off? Because if I'm laughing it off as a defense or whatever deliberately, then it's obviously it's triggered me.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at.
Right, but only you can know that. You have to decide for yourself. Myself here. It doesn't matter either way. It'll come around again.
And that's what was helpful to hear.
Right. All good. All right, I'm going to go. The sun's burning my face off here.
Right on.
Nice.
My friends are probably very tired now. I got to go back to work.
Yes.
Yeah, Barry's
what else is going to come for me? What else is going to come for me today?
I just want to, Barry, don't take that off for 3 days. It doesn't leave your finger. Got it?
Okay.
Good. I'll tell you why. You'll work it out later, but I'll tell you why anyway next week.
Okay. All right.
Peace.
Good night. Oh, goodbye.
Oh, bye, you guys. Thanks for staying so late.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. See you, Tina.
Don't take that ring off. Don't take the Lord of the Ring. Precious. Bye.
My precious. See ya.